Hey everyone, it's Melissa and Ashley here this evening, and we'll be chatting with George Popov. George Popov is the director, writer, and producer, co-owner of Rubicon Films. He made waves with his feature horror film back in 2017, Hex. On April 21st, 2020, Rubicon Films released their second feature horror film, The Droving. George, can you tell us a little bit about the film, The Droving?
Yes, of course, no worries. The Droving is it's a dark, mysterious thriller that it's about a soldier that comes back home to find out that his sister went missing during the time of a mysterious festival in England, and he's trying to find out what happened. So it's a kind of dark, folky sort of horror tale, about for us to see what happened, and yeah, that kind of a film.
Okay. Did you happen to stumble upon any roadblocks while you were filming the drawing?
Like anytime you make a feature
Yeah.
film, you stumble upon many roadblocks. I don't think it was just one, but I wouldn't say there was anything big that we weren't expecting to happen. It was mostly like, with every scene, with every moment, we were trying to make, it was a bigger film than Hex in many ways.
Yeah.
We went did a lot of things, and it paid off hugely. But we had a lot of challenging locations to shoot at. We had mountains and lakes and
Right,
a
right.
lot of places where they're hard to get to, they're hard to get everything kind of ready at the time. So those were challenging, but they were definitely worth it because they're
Yeah.
so beautiful. Yeah,
Yes, it was. It was very beautiful. The cinematography was amazing. How different,
definitely.
how different was what you originally envisioned the droving being like and how it eventually turned out?
It's I can definitely say that it was very close in many ways in terms of the script and how the story went. There wasn't
Yeah.
any major story differences, but you have to give it like some room. Like as many filmmakers say, you
Hmm.
make the film three times. When you write it, you shoot it,
Right,
and you edit it. So
right.
you make sure that you're always making the film that you wanted to make at the beginning. You have the same vision and everything, but
Hmm.
you have to be ready to improvise and to use the best of what you've done, and
Exactly.
play a little bit of jazz with the film, and like be
Yeah.
able to communicate to us what's happening. So I would say it's pretty close, but in some ways, maybe there's a couple of things that I imagined better,
Yeah.
but mostly there was things that actually turned out better than we even imagined. So
Oh, good.
there's
Yeah.
in the film where we believe that in the edit we made kind of like a few changes quite late. That
Mhm.
wasn't that way in the script, but it was definitely a much better decision, and yeah,
Yeah.
and much better for it.
Great. Well, we read that some of the locations where you shot had a rich background that included myths and everything. So, was it your intention to use the locations that were steeped in folklore?
Well, no, basically about the locations, it was a similar thing to Hex. The atmosphere was very important to me, and it always is in terms of the story that we're trying to tell.
Right.
So a lot of those places and locations, fit in a great way. The type of the essence of the land and
Hmm.
everything that there is a lot of history to them, even though it takes place in modern day. And I wanted with like the more the film progressed, the more for us to be kind of walking away from civilization, to be going
Right.
back in time,
Okay.
metaphorically, and to go back to those traditions that the film was about. That there is like something that's like a dark and ancient secret
Hmm.
thing, and I wanted people to feel that with every location, as if we're going to a more time of something that's older and
Yeah.
even more primordial when we start climbing the mountains and everything. So that was definitely a factor. And how challenging to film at the locations wasn't not gonna turn us away from how
Right.
done in the film. So yeah.
Okay.
Like, how rigorously did you stick to the script while filming?
Right. It's we were very close.
Okay.
Unlike this was a film that's like quite heavy on dialogue, and we had quite a lot of that the main character Martin. He's such a big part of the film, and
Right.
we know him in every scene and almost in every shot.
Hmm.
And his character is, we took a lot of time to craft like exactly. He's very meticulous, so it's hard to improvise with him in many scenes, and neither me or Daniel Oldroyd, who plays Martin, feeling like there's going to be too many scenes where we're going to go like completely off the book. There is one scene that we kind of wrote quite loosely on purpose, and that was the scenes in the flashback during the Christmas scene with his sister and everything. And when we were writing it, I knew that I would like to do that one very differently for the rest of the film. I wanted to feel in a very different way than everything that's taking place. You know, the color scheme is different. Basically the whole atmosphere is very different. Much more homely and warm. Right. So that one was also written quite loosely. So we had, quite a few pages of dialogue there, but a lot of it ended up being improvised because it helped it like build a casual atmosphere. But the rest of the film, I would say, was close.
That's cool. What do you feel is the most important lesson that you had to learn that has had a positive effect on your film?
Right. I mean, that's a good question. I think after when you go from first feature to second feature, I think it's one of the biggest leaps you can make. I mean, the biggest leap is going from no feature to a perfect. But the second biggest one is that next one. I think after that it gets a lot more kind of like easier to imagine. But there's a lot of lessons that I did learn from Hex, like positive and negative in terms of like, okay, this I'm getting more confidence in this, or I should there's some stuff that I would want to work on. But I think if there is a main one, was it to I see myself as quite of a confident guy. I think like most directors, but like second guessing everything that you're saying. Yeah. So even then, I think I learned to trust myself even more with that initial vision of atmosphere and everything that you have about the film and the influences that you're using and kind of that time that you're spending on your own just to imagine of what it's going to look like. And to trust that more, because if you trust that more at the beginning, then anything that happens afterwards, as I said, even the changes that we made to, the edit and so on and so forth, you feel much better if you have to change something later on, because what is the core of your story and your feeling and your direction and the vision sound like, then after that you can play quite loose and feel like, well, actually, I don't want that opening. I'm going to do a different opening with, something. I'm going to do this later, and let's cut these scenes and like spread them around in the movie, like make some changes that I think would Hex, because it's your first film, you're kind of a bit afraid to mess things up, and you're like, well, it's not what we wanted, and am I going to do it? So I think that was a positive lesson. Just like as long as you trust at your core, that's solid. Then everything else around that, you have to leave the film to speak to you as well. When you can play around with it.
Right. Well, in the past, folk horror seemed to only attract certain audiences and reviewed on like a much smaller scale. Do you think that's changing with the success of your film and others in the genre?
Oh, absolutely. I think some kind of bigger independent and studio films like started out very well. I mean, with examples like The Witch, and you had after that with something like Midsummer. And so I think definitely before was more like a cult film thing, and you had like Man is the One That Stands, but then obviously having like a terrible Nick Cage remake didn't really help that come back in a strong way. I think now it's I mean, like any genre of horror. I mean, like something like The Drawing is I would say a traditional horror film. I think it has quite a few genres mixed in with it. In some ways it's a crime procedure. In some ways it's a thriller. It's a folk film and the horror and everything else. And because horror kind of means so many cool things, like something has to do with history and folklore, and could have fantasy elements, could have just some sort of more subdued supernatural elements, could have none of them and just be about cult and everything. I think people love the fact that every time they see a film like this, it will feel like fresh and new. Exactly. Because around the world there's so much folklore, and it doesn't matter if you can do something that doesn't just need to be purely a European or kind of classic New England like The Witch, something that's like Native American influence to do something with Wendigos, or you can do something African and do something
Yeah.
like really exciting there. Or so I think there's a lot of potential, and we're just the filmmakers right now. We're scratching like the tip of the iceberg, I think.
Okay. Well, what kind of future do you see for British folklore?
I mean, I think England and Britain as a whole, there's so much history, to the country and to Europe as a whole of being like, the civilizations are quite old, that there is still so much left uncovered. That there is a lot of sources that you can go for, and you can do it as again something like Hex. That was a period film. The drawing took place, modern day, and there wasn't too much in common other than the scary elements
Right.
with genres, and so they feel quite different. And that's just between my two films. I think with other filmmakers as well, we can do quite a few different and new things, just as I said,
Yeah.
and have English folklore in it, or any sort of British folklore. And I mean, I'm not English myself. I'm from Nigeria.
Right.
Um, to me, I like it just because to me it's exotic. I think for someone who is from England, those things when they make it, it might be a bit too familiar. They've grown up with it. I think they know it, um, which that's great. They'll make those type of films. For something like me, because I'm coming out as a bit of an outsider and a different angle, I think those will look completely different. Because as I said, for me, they look a bit, still exciting, still exotic, and
Yeah.
that will be the same approach, no matter which country I make a film in. I think I'll try to kind of tap into the history and just the interesting things from that country, and add, just do it through my lens. And there's a lot of opportunity to do that, and it's the UK is very multicultural, and I think we should use more of that and have more different voices trying to look at maybe the history and the folklore through their own perception.
Are there any filmmakers that have influenced your style of filmmaking?
All right. I mean, many as a whole, but it turns out it's difficult to say, because I'm trying not to, kind of grab too literally
Yeah.
things.
Right.
I think influence through from many, and I kind of just leave it kind of pickle in my brain, and then at some point it just happens. I mean, I'm sure there is a lot of Coppola in there. I think, I mean, I'm a big Scorsese fan, but I think a few more kind of obvious ones, from Hicks and the drawing. I've seen people mention, Tarkovsky and Malik, and I think I would agree with that. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
Scum is an influence there. David Fincher, probably also a big influence, and yeah, of the um, more newer, like the Denis Villeneuve films, especially. Yeah, I think there's quite a few, and you
Right.
know, just like different aspects, and some of it might be just in terms of visually, another thing might be just the type of stories they tell, or
Right.
story structure. But yeah, some of those for sure.
Oh, I want to know, how did you get started in film?
So basically, I started as a filmmaker because I mean, I grew up with my father is a painter, and my mother an actress, and my grandfather was a theater director, and I think a whole house full of
Oh, artistic
crazy
family.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, all these arts around, and like there was constantly actors coming, to the house, and it talks about films or theater or music, and like
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So I mean, I grew up enjoying different aspects of all of these arts. So eventually, I think I came to the conclusion, well, there is one art that kind of combines all of these things in
Yeah.
one, and that was cinema. So I started paying a little bit more attention to, okay, so who directed this film? What does director mean, or who wrote it, and like who shot it, all that kind of stuff. So little by little, like I got more interested in it, and started writing, my little stories and stuff like that. So that was the beginnings, and then and after that I came here to the UK to study filmmaking. That's where I met my good filmmaking partner that we own now the company, Jonathan Russell, and there we started, writing our first, feature film scripts, and from there we kind of made Hex, and the company is what it is now. But yeah, that was kind of like the beginning. But it's always a rocky road of ups and downs.
Well, George, how did you feel when you woke up and you saw that the Droving was trending on Amazon and everything? Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's tweeting you. Like,
Well, I mean, it feels great. It feels great. I didn't expect it to be exactly as much as that. We're yet to receive a bad review from critics. I mean, that's great. I mean, I really appreciate it. I'm really trying not to stop and appreciate it and not take it for granted and just move on and be like, oh yeah, now let's do this. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I'm very happy that people see that. I mean, we had a really good response for our first film as well, but to know that we're reaching a lot more people, and a lot more people universally liking it, and everything shows that we have growth as filmmakers, and it just we're very excited about like things to come, and I
right.
think it's good. It's good for all kinds of independent filmmakers out there. We can get that, we can communicate to people, and it's always good to help out each other, and move move like more faster and higher, and then yeah, that's all good. But yeah, it's being amazing, and I really appreciate it.
Great. What advice would you give to any up and coming film directors?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great advices already from a lot of other filmmakers to start just let's say just make a movie, which I would definitely start by just concurring that. I think you have to, in this day and age, there's quite a lot of films being made, but at the same time you have the chance of just shooting one not to look too different from like the really expensive Hollywood films. um, so having, if you have that chance of having people around you and being able to connect with professionals who want to do the same thing, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
that a little bit crazier as well, and you can get together and make something, I think
Yeah.
you should do it. But if I'm a bit more specific, I think in terms of advice, I've always found it the most kind of challenging to kind of taper the ambition, or to know when to be patient and when to be impatient. And I
Right.
think both of those are incredibly important. If I have to say something, it's finding that balance,
Mm-hmm.
go for it, and when to say like, okay, I've done enough now. I just wait, or I just let's not get ahead of myself. Um, I don't think anyone will be able to do it right away. I still haven't learned to do it. I mean, I think Martin Scorsese is 75, and he says that he still hasn't learned to do it. I think, but like
Yeah.
trying to strive for that, I think it's important. And what I mean by the balance between patience and impatience is the fact that there's a lot of sitting around and waiting in filming to
Mm-hmm.
get the project running, or to get everybody together, or to push it forward. But then at the same time, like when you feel like it's starting to happen, you just
Yeah.
absolutely have to go, and you have to plow through everything and not compromise, and not like back down. Like you have to become like a real bastard at that point. So
Yeah.
so I think um, it's like that opening scene in Drive, when he's waiting, nothing's happening, but he like his foot is
Right.
almost like on
Right.
the gas, and he's ready to go. You have to be like this. So when you feel like in your heart that everything's ready to go, and you have the right people onto it, and there's some like big decision you have to make, go for it. And if you like, because if you make an excuse there and you don't do
Mm-hmm.
it, I don't think you will.
Great advice. Great advice.
Can you tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on?
Sure. I mean, we have quite a few, but we have like
Yeah.
one bigger one where like there it's kind of like to keep that ambition, and that kind of evolution from Hex to the Droving. We need
Mm-hmm.
to keep going with that. Like definitely need to keep upping ourselves, and we're very excited about the project that it's pretty much ready to go. That's called Iron Hearts, and it's basically our own retelling of the fairy tale of Beauty and the Beast. So,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
so basically, this is our next step to go. And like in basically our version, if you've seen like anything like Hex and the Droving or those type of films, you know, you can probably guess that it's kind of like a darker, moodier version of
Yeah.
and I think, I mean, I love the Disney movie just as much as everybody else, but I would say for everybody who loved it as a kid and you've now grown up like we have,
Yeah.
uh, that's the one for you because it's definitely a lot more kind of you know, kind of adult and kind of darker and go
Right.
deeper with, go deeper with the
Yeah.
characters. And
Yeah.
if you enjoyed Game of Thrones, well, it was still good, and I think there is in you know there's a lot of it like this in here, and I think it's the best script yet that me and Jonathan have written. I mean, we love those characters that we created, and I mean, you know, as you might have seen with the drugging, like I tried to attempt to really kind of like thick atmosphere, and I would
Mhm.
love to do that with that fairy tale because all of them start from a very kind of dark place. You know, like all of the fairy tales, they're quite more messed up than now. So I like that, and then that's kind of the direction where we're going. So yeah, it will be very.
I can't wait.
Well, George, we want to thank you for taking
Thank you
time
so
to
much.
chat with us, and we wish you
Thank
the
you.
best on all your future endeavors.
We want to let everyone know to please check out The Droving on Amazon Prime. And is there anywhere else they can check it out at as well? You know,
At the
Amazon Prime.
moment, Amazon, I mean, Hex you can check also on Apple TV and Google Play and pretty much
Okay.
everywhere else. But with the drawing, we'll be rolling it out one by one on other platforms as well. So you'll be able to check it there. And yeah, and yeah, and I really appreciate also your review for it because it was great. And, thank you very much.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. Um,
Um, but yeah, no, and it's a great website you have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And we appreciate you so much for taking the time out with us. And to
Or
everyone for tuning in, stay home, stay safe, and we are out.